You ever have one of those moments that looks totally normal from the outside? Maybe even fun. But something about it sticks in your ribs afterward like a splinter? Not loud, not obvious. Just off. You carry it with you, replaying it like an itch you can't reach. That's what this night was. The moment everything started to crack, even though I couldn't admit it yet. It was New Year's Eve, one of those big, overpriced club events where everyone pretends they're more excited than they are. We went because her friend Rena had scored discounted VIP tickets and everyone was going. I wasn't exactly thrilled about it, but Sloane had this way of making even the most chaotic plans sound like they were going to be the memory of a lifetime. And when she smiled, the real kind, the kind she used to give me, I wanted to believe that maybe, for one night, things would feel simple again. Spoiler, they didn't. The place was already packed when we arrived. Strobe lights cutting through a haze of fog machine mist, wall-to-wall bodies pulsing to whatever remix the DJ had on loop. Sloane looked incredible. All black dress, red lips, curled hair that she'd redone twice before we left. I remember thinking, God, she still takes my breath away, and then immediately feeling like that thought didn't land the way it used to. Like it bounced off a wall between us I didn't realize had been built. She was glowing, though, in her element. Laughing, dancing, greeting people I didn't know with a familiarity that made me feel like a +1 to her life. It wasn't anything new. Sloane was a social kind of magnetic. People gravitated toward her like moths to a phone screen. Still, something about tonight felt dialed up. Sharper. Hungrier. I don't know when exactly I noticed she was gone. One minute she was dancing near the edge of the group, arms in the air, mouthing the lyrics to a song she said she hated. The next, I turned to say something, and she wasn't there. I figured she went to the bar or maybe the bathroom. The crowd was thick, and it wasn't like we were attached at the hip. But minutes passed. Then more. I checked my phone. No messages. No "be right back" or even a bathroom emoji, which she usually sent as a joke. First I waited. Then I started scanning the crowd, not panicking, just watching. Trying to spot that dress, that red lip. Nothing. 10 minutes turned to 15. People were still dancing, the countdown timer on the LED screen overhead ticking closer to midnight, but my chest was tightening in a way I couldn't explain. Then I saw her. She came back just as the timer hit 3 minutes and 47 seconds. Her hair was a little frizzed like she'd been in a humid spot. Lipstick not gone, but smudged just slightly to the right, like someone's cheek or mouth had brushed it. No drink in her hand. I caught her eyes from across the crowd, and I swear she flinched before pasting on a grin, like she had to turn on the expression she was supposed to have for me. "There you are," I said when she got close enough. Kept it light. I didn't want to sound suspicious, though clearly I already was. "Why?" she asked, raising her eyebrows like I'd accused her of something. "I can't step away for a few minutes without you freaking out." That's when I knew something was really wrong. Her tone wasn't playful, it was defensive. Sharp. Aimed at me like I'd done something wrong just by wondering where she'd gone. And for a second I started to believe her. Like maybe I was overthinking. Like maybe the weird twinge in my chest was my own insecurity trying to ruin the night. But then the lights above us flickered. Just for a second. A ceiling-mounted camera, one of those basic security domes, glitched right around the same time she walked back into view. It was brief, but I noticed. And then I noticed the guy behind her, maybe 10 feet away, phone held higher than necessary. Not recording the crowd or the DJ. Pointed toward the hallway near the bathrooms. I glanced at Sloane again. Her smile faltered for a microsecond. Just enough to register. "You okay?" I asked louder now. She leaned in, put her arms around my neck, and whispered in my ear with a practiced laugh. "Let's not do this. Don't ruin the night with your weird mood." And then, as if that settled everything, she turned back toward the crowd, grabbed Rena's hand, and pulled her toward the dance floor. I stood there for a second, watching her spin and laugh. The red lipstick now faded more, barely clinging to the edges of her smile. She looked like she was performing. Not for me, but for the crowd. For the camera. For whatever version of herself she was trying to convince everyone was still real. I tried to shake it off. Told myself I was being ridiculous. That maybe she had gone to the bathroom, maybe wiped her mouth on her wrist, maybe talked to someone in the hallway, and that's all it was. That I was jealous, possessive, imagining things. But the rest of the night felt like I was watching through glass. I was there, dancing, drinking, smiling in photos, but not with her. Not really. I was outside looking in. She didn't mention where she went, and I didn't ask. But she kept glancing at her phone when she thought I wasn't looking, laughing too loudly, getting just a little too close to people when she posed for photos. And when midnight hit, when the confetti sprayed from the ceiling and people were screaming Happy New Year, like it meant something, I kissed her, because that's what we were supposed to do. But her lips were dry, and her eyes were somewhere else. That was the moment I knew. I didn't have proof, not yet. But I had a gut feeling so loud it might as well have been a voice in my ear. And worst of all, she made me feel like the one out of line. Like I was dragging down the night with my energy. She said it with a laugh. Like it was just a joke. "What's going on with you tonight, huh? Getting all weird on me." And everyone laughed, her friends, the strangers around us. Even I laughed, because what else could I do? But inside, I felt like I'd witnessed something real. Something important, and I wasn't allowed to process it. Not then. That night, in the Uber home, she fell asleep on my shoulder, still smiling, and I stared out the window, quietly mourning a truth I hadn't even uncovered yet. After that night at the club, after the flickering ceiling cameras and the smudged lipstick and the forced laughter, I found myself retreating into my own head more often. Not in a dramatic way, just quieter. I stopped speaking my thoughts out loud. I started listening instead. Watching. When you love someone, it's easy to mistake erosion for weather. You see the changes and tell yourself it's just a phase. Everyone grows. Things settle. People need space. But if I'm honest with myself, the cracks had been spreading for months. Long before New Year's. I just didn't want to admit it. It started subtly, the way these things always do. Little shifts in behavior, in tone, in timing. At first, I chalked them up to stress. Her work had been picking up, she said. New projects. Fast-paced, collaborative, a bit political. The buzzwords came out in waves, like she was repeating a script she didn't fully believe. I'd ask about her coworkers, try to be supportive, and she'd toss out vague names like Jade or Aaron. People I'd never met, never even seen on social media. "I've told you about them," she'd say whenever I asked too many questions. But the truth was, she hadn't. Or if she had, the details were thin enough to slip through my fingers like fog. Then came the mood swings. At first, they felt random. One day she'd be affectionate, making plans for vacations or asking if I wanted to host a game night. The next, she'd be cold, irritated by the way I loaded the dishwasher or how I left my shoes near the door. I used to know how to read her, could tell when she was tired, when she wanted attention, when she needed space. But lately it felt like guessing. I remember one morning in late November. I made her coffee the way she liked it, 2 pumps of oat milk creamer, half a packet of stevia, just enough cinnamon to stir in, not sprinkle on top. I brought it to her in bed, hoping it might soften whatever tension had been thick in the air since the night before. She barely looked up from her phone when she took it. "Thanks," she mumbled. And then she asked me, without looking away from the screen, "Do you ever feel like you're stuck?" I remember freezing, still holding the edge of the cup as she took her first sip. "Stuck," I echoed, unsure if she meant with work, life, or me. She didn't clarify, just shrugged, put the cup down on the nightstand, and went back to scrolling. That was the first morning she didn't finish her coffee. After that, things kept shifting. She started going out more, at first with her usual group of friends, then with coworkers I'd never met. The invites started disappearing too. She used to ask if I wanted to join, even when she knew I'd say no. Then she just stopped asking altogether. "It's just a few of us catching up after work," she said once, sliding on a jacket I'd never seen before. Nothing exciting. I wanted to ask why she was wearing heels for a casual catch-up. I wanted to ask why her perfume was the one she used to save for date nights. But I didn't. I told myself not to be controlling, that she deserved to go out, to have a life outside of me. But still, the distance kept growing. She started keeping her phone closer. Before, she'd leave it charging in the kitchen overnight or toss somewhere on the couch during movies. Now, it was always face down on the nightstand, even when she showered. Notifications stopped showing previews. She set up a new passcode one night when she thought I wasn't looking. And it wasn't just the phone. It was her. She started rehearsing herself. That's the only way I can describe it. Her laugh got a little louder. Her stories got more polished, more audience-ready. She started documenting nights out with Instagram captions that read like she was marketing her freedom to someone. Maybe to herself. Just vibes tonight, woman dancing cocktail glass. Or, reminding myself what fun looks like. She'd post selfies with friends I barely recognized or not post at all, then later tell me she forgot to take pictures. One night I pointed out that I didn't see any stories from the happy hour she'd just come back from. And she snapped, "Jesus, are you stalking my account now?" It was the first time I didn't have a response. Just silence. I'd started to feel like furniture in her life. Necessary, comfortable, but invisible. I was still doing all the things I always had. Cooking, grocery shopping, keeping the house running, asking about her day. But she answered like someone fulfilling an obligation. Her attention had drifted somewhere I couldn't follow. Once we were at a friend's engagement party. She wore this low-back dress that made everyone in the room turn their heads. She knew it too. She moved like she wanted to be seen. She laughed a little louder that night, stood a little closer to people when she talked. She let some guy named Trevor refill her wine twice before I even noticed. When I mentioned it in the car afterward, she rolled her eyes and said, "Wow, you really are keeping track, aren't you?" I tried to laugh it off, to play along, but my hands stayed clenched on the steering wheel all the way home. And maybe the worst part? I didn't even know how to bring it up anymore. Every time I tried, she flipped it, made me feel paranoid, clingy, insecure. I started doubting myself, wondering if I was losing it, if I'd become too dependent on the relationship, if maybe I was the one who needed to change. But then I'd remember how it used to be. The little things. The mornings she'd press her cold feet against my legs in bed just to mess with me. The way she used to hold onto my arm in crowded places, like I was the only anchor she trusted. The way she used to look at me, like I was the thing that made the room feel steady. And now she looked past me, like she was already rehearsing a version of her life where I didn't exist. I kept thinking, maybe this is just a rough patch. Maybe she's going through something and doesn't know how to say it. I wanted to believe that, desperately. I told myself I could wait it out, be patient, be steady, be whatever she needed. But each new girls' night felt more distant. Each unanswered text felt heavier. And every time I asked if she was okay, really okay, I got the same answer. "I'm just tired." So was I, but for different reasons. And still I held on. Told myself it would get better. That the old Sloane would come back. That if I just waited long enough, stayed kind enough, patient enough, she'd see me again. What I didn't realize was that she'd already stopped looking. What I didn't want to believe was that maybe she wasn't coming back at all. The next morning, I woke up before Sloane. Not that I slept much. I'd spent most of the night lying on my side of the bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the heater and the occasional soft buzz of her phone lighting up the nightstand. She always slept through those deep, peaceful sleep. I used to love watching her like that. Now, all I could think was, what do you dream about when you're not dreaming of us anymore? She was still curled toward the wall when I got up, her bare shoulder rising and falling in a rhythm I used to match without thinking. I pulled on a hoodie, walked into the kitchen, and turned on the kettle, trying to pretend this was a normal morning. The silence was loud, and then I checked my phone. It started with a tag notification. That's what did it. Not some anonymous email. Not a gut-wrenching confrontation. Just a little red dot on the top right corner of my screen. Someone had tagged me in an Instagram story from last night. One of those Happy New Year clips that people post without thinking. Confetti, bass drops, flashing lights. I almost didn't open it. I was gonna scroll right past it. But the username caught my eye. Rena, Sloane's friend. The one who got us into the party in the first place. I tapped the story. There were 3 short videos. The first was harmless. A blurry pan of the club floor, people shouting the countdown. The second was the DJ yelling, "Welcome to 202X," over a remix of some Dua Lipa song. And then there was the third. It took me half a second to understand what I was seeing. The angle was low, probably sh*t by accident. Someone holding their phone at their side, just above waist level. Not posed. Not staged. The kind of clip that gets uploaded with 10 others and forgotten. But there she was, Sloane, in the middle of the frame, kissing someone. And not just kissing, leaning into him, her hand on his chest, his hand low on her waist, her eyes closed, relaxed, like this wasn't the first time, like it was exactly what she wanted to be doing. There was no crowd around them. They were tucked off to the side of the floor, near that same hallway, the one where she had disappeared before midnight. I recognized the location immediately. The same strobing blue lights, the same flickering ceiling camera overhead. The timestamp read, 11:56 p.m. For minutes before she returned to me. For minutes before she laughed at me for looking paranoid. For minutes before she kissed me on the cheek like nothing had happened. I watched the clip again, and again. It was only 8 seconds long, but each time I played it, I saw something new. The way she tilted her head. The familiarity of it. The complete lack of hesitation. There was no misinterpretation here. No. He kissed me and I pushed him away. No, it meant nothing. No fuzzy resolution or plausible deniability. She kissed him like they were already something. And her face, when she pulled back, she smiled. Not a grin. Not a smirk. Just a soft smile. The kind you give when you're exactly where you want to be. The kettle started to whistle, but I didn't hear it until it boiled dry. I snapped out of the trance just in time to shut it off before the alarm got loud enough to wake her. I stood in the kitchen with my phone in my hand, heart pounding, stomach sick. My first thought wasn't anger. It was clarity. All the doubts, the strange behavior, the late nights, the guarded phone, the way she twisted things to make me feel guilty. It all snapped into focus. This wasn't in my head. This wasn't something I could fix with communication. This wasn't about her being stressed, or needing space, or finding herself. This was betrayal. Real. Physical. Documented. Casual. And it wasn't even hidden. She hadn't tried to delete the post. Rena probably didn't even realize what she'd uploaded. She was just recording the night. But she caught the moment Sloane stopped being my wife and started being someone else entirely. I didn't say anything when Sloane walked into the kitchen 20 minutes later. She looked tired, a little hungover, pulled her sleeves over her hands and gave me a small smile. "Morning," she said. I nodded. "Morning." She poured herself water, glanced at her phone, and then kissed me on the cheek. The same cheek she had ignored the night before. "You sleep okay?" "Yeah." I lied. She went to the bathroom after that. I heard the shower turn on. And I sat there, staring at the phone, watching the video again. There's a kind of heartbreak that comes quietly. It doesn't explode. It doesn't scream. It just settles, like ash after a fire. You feel it in your chest and your spine and your knees. You feel it in your reflection, like you aged 10 years overnight and didn't notice until someone showed you a mirror. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I didn't scream or accuse or demand answers. What would be the point? She knew what she did. She made the decision 4 minutes before midnight. On the biggest night of the year. In a crowded room where anyone could have seen her. She didn't care. Or maybe she cared and did it anyway. Either way, it was done. Later that day, I texted Rena. "Hey, saw your NYE stories. Mind if I ask when those were taken?" She replied within minutes. "Oh crap. I posted a bunch without even watching them. Too many tequila sh*ts lol. Why? Did I post something weird?" I waited a full hour before responding. No, just wondering what time it was. Pretty sure it was all right before midnight. We were trying to get a good spot for the countdown. Got it. Thanks. You okay? I didn't answer. Couldn't. Anything I said would have been a scream written in lowercase letters. Instead, I saved the video, downloaded it, archived it, and for the rest of the day, I moved through the house like I was on autopilot. Folded laundry, took out the trash, answered emails, cooked dinner, all while the image of her kiss, the way she kissed him, played on a loop in my head. She smiled through dinner, asked about my week, talked about some upcoming team meeting like nothing had changed. But everything had changed, because now I wasn't guessing anymore. Now I knew. The thing no one tells you about heartbreak is that once you have the truth, it gets eerily quiet. I always imagined this moment would be chaos. Yelling, accusations, sobbing in the kitchen, maybe even a dramatic scene like something out of a bad movie. But no, when the truth finally settled into my bones, it didn't scream. It whispered, and I listened. After I saw the video of Sloane kissing him, time-stamped, clear, final, I didn't confront her. I didn't demand she explain something I already understood. I didn't need her to lie to me again. I just stopped believing in her, stopped waiting for her, stopped pretending there was something worth salvaging. But more importantly, I started preparing. You don't walk away from a life like this overnight. We'd been married 5 years. Built a home together. Combined finances, shared subscriptions, had our names on the same tax forms. You don't just leave, not unless you've planned it. And I knew right then that I couldn't give her a single warning. No blow-up, no signals, just silence. Let her keep smiling across the dinner table like nothing happened. Let her keep her illusion. I was already gone, quietly, deliberately, like a man stepping backward into the shadows. First, I got a P.O. box. I told her it was for work. Something about freelance stuff I didn't want to explain. She didn't care. Barely blinked. Just said, "Sounds smart." From there, I opened a new checking account in my name only. Transferred small amounts at first under the radar. Rounded numbers. Looked like regular transactions. Coffee, gas, maybe an app subscription. Then the bigger moves. Stopped our joint auto-renewals. Hulu, Netflix, Spotify family. I paid through my card, then forgot to reconnect hers. Changed passwords. Quietly, subtly, I started removing myself from our shared digital life. I backed up all my documents. Scanned everything into cloud storage. Birth certificate, passport, contracts. I didn't want to be locked out of anything once I left. I didn't want to give her a single reason to stall or manipulate. I was building an exit, one invisible brick at a time. At night, after she fell asleep, I'd lie awake planning. I started using a private browser window. Made lists, checked apartments, studios, one-bedrooms, month-to-month leases. Close enough to work, far enough from her. Eventually I found one, a furnished unit in a quiet building on the other side of town. The landlord was chill, didn't ask too many questions. I paid the deposit in cash. "It's just a short-term thing," I told him. He nodded. Sometimes short-term turns into permanent. I didn't respond, but part of me already knew he was right. Next came the paperwork. I downloaded every transaction from the last 12 months. Labeled them, color-coded, highlighted things that were clearly hers. I wasn't gonna fight, I just wanted it clean. I wanted to leave with facts, not drama. I created a folder on my desktop labeled taxes. Inside were copies of our joint expenses, her Venmo transfers to names I didn't recognize, Uber rides to places she never mentioned. It wasn't about proving anything to her. It was about proving it to myself. When I walked out, I wanted to know I wasn't crazy, that I hadn't imagined the distance, the deception, the slow erasure of us. And all the while I kept the routine. I made her coffee in the morning, kissed her on the forehead, asked about her day. She smiled, answered vaguely. Sometimes she laughed, that fake kind of laugh that used to sound real. Sometimes she was cold. Sometimes she wasn't home. But I didn't press. I didn't accuse. I just observed and prepared. Took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of pretending I didn't know. Of going to bed next to someone I couldn't recognize anymore. Of pretending I still wanted the future we used to talk about. She made it easy, honestly. Her phone never left her hand. She started locking the bathroom door. The texts she sent me were dry, polite, like messages from a coworker, not a wife. Sometimes I'd look at her and wonder if she realized how far she'd drifted, if she felt any guilt, if the man from the video had become a fixture in her life, or if she just rotated them moment to moment, feeding off the attention like fuel. One night, she came home late, again, and told me her friend Casey had a meltdown and she had to talk her off the ledge. I nodded. Hope she's okay. She blinked, almost surprised I didn't ask questions. I'm really tired, she said, yawning. Go rest, I told her. I'll clean up. And I did. I cleaned up the wine glass she left in the sink, washed the plate she'd used for toast, picked up her jacket from the floor. Then I went into my office and deleted our joint calendar. I canceled our upcoming weekend trip, a wine tasting she'd booked and then forgotten to tell me about. Just another photo op for someone else's attention span. She didn't even notice it disappeared. The next morning, I paid the first month's rent on the new place. I picked a move-in date. Friday. Quiet. Strategic. She always went to yoga and then brunch with her crew, the people she name-dropped but never brought home. I scheduled the movers for 9 a.m. When Friday came, I left the apartment early, just like I said I would. Kissed her goodbye. Told her I had a meeting. She nodded, barely awake. Went back to scrolling. The movers were fast. Professional. I had boxed everything in advance, just the essentials. Clothes, books, gear. Nothing sentimental. Nothing that would make me stop and remember. By noon I was gone. I left one folder on the dining table. Inside, a printed copy of our joint account activity with annotations. A list of shared passwords I was transferring to her. Receipts. Confirmations. My name removed from the lease. The final utilities bill. No note. No goodbye. No dramatics. Just closure. And silence. By the time she checked Instagram that afternoon, the video had already made the rounds. Someone had tagged the original story again. People were sharing it now, resharing, reacting, commenting things like, oof, and yikes, and isn't that? She didn't call me. Not that day. Not the next. Not until Monday. Even then, she didn't ask where I was. She just texted, we need to talk. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I'd already said it. I said it with the blank drawers in the bedroom, with the deactivated joint Spotify, with the silent phone on her nightstand that would never light up with my name again. I said it by leaving before she had the chance to spin the story one more time, because for the first time in months I wasn't waiting. I wasn't hoping. I wasn't asking her to pick me. I was gone. I thought she'd come knocking right away. Thought maybe there'd be a voicemail, an explosion, some text war begging me to explain myself, to hear her side, even if she didn't have one. But Sloane didn't reach out that first day, or the second. It was the third morning, Monday, when she finally sent a text. We need to talk. I didn't reply. I stared at it for a while, reread it maybe 10 times. We need to talk. For words that used to mean something in our marriage. Now they felt hollow. Like a line she thought would still work. Like she hadn't noticed that the audience was already gone. The curtain already dropped. That was her tell if you knew her long enough. Sloane didn't react to things, not right away. She waited. Waited to see how bad the fallout was going to be. Waited to see what narrative would get her back into the spotlight without taking too much blame. She always assumed she could redirect the story. This time, there was nothing left to redirect. I had removed myself so completely that she didn't even know where to begin. The apartment was in her name now. The joint accounts were closed. My phone was silent. I hadn't blocked her, I just stopped answering. That was the part she never expected. Sloane knew how to handle chaos. She knew how to cry on cue, how to whip up a dramatic apology if needed. She could perform heartbreak convincingly. She'd done it before, even in arguments with me. But this wasn't a stage anymore. There was no one left to clap. And that's what broke her. Because Sloane didn't need love. She needed an audience. And now, she had none. I started hearing about it from mutual friends, the ones who hadn't taken sides but had eyes and ears in group chats. People said she was acting weird. Rena, the one who posted the video, told someone at brunch that Sloane had basically ghosted the group after I moved out. She stopped posting on Instagram for a while, which, if you knew her, was unheard of. There were no selfies, no carefully angled sh*ts of avocado toast, no recycled quotes in pastel fonts, just silence. Eventually, she started testing the waters again. One post, then another. A mirror selfie with a caption like, "Healing in progress seedling sparkles," which I guess was supposed to signal growth, or peace, or something poetic. But the likes were low, the comments minimal. Even her followers, people who used to hype her up in every photo, started going quiet. I recognized some of the names. Women who used to text her daily. Guys who used to comment fire emojis. Gone. The truth was still floating around in the background. That video didn't go viral, but it did circulate. And it stuck. Nobody said anything directly to her. People never do. But she had to know. It was in the silence. In the group chats she wasn't in anymore. In the texts she sent that didn't get replies. She'd built a world where she was the main character. Charming, magnetic, misunderstood. But you can only play that role if the audience buys in. And when they stop buying in, you're just talking to yourself. I imagine she thought I'd come back. Eventually. That I was just being dramatic or processing or punishing her. That maybe I needed space and would return once I calmed down, like I always had. But I wasn't angry anymore. That was the problem. There's a difference between rage and resolve. She'd always known how to handle anger. She could spin it, cry through it, play the victim if necessary. But silence? She had no script for silence. I started getting little breadcrumbs after that. Random texts with no context. A photo of a cat she saw on the street. A memory from a trip we took 2 years ago. A song we used to listen to. I never replied. She switched tones after that. Tried going formal. Just checking in. Hope you're okay. If there's anything you need me to sign, let me know. We should divide the cookware when you have time. I ignored those two. Because what was the point? Every word she sent was just another attempt to pull me back into her orbit. But I wasn't in orbit anymore. I was already on another planet. A month passed. Then 2. I saw her once, from a distance, outside a cafe we used to go to. She was with someone. Not him, not the man from the video. Someone else. They weren't holding hands. Just talking. Her body language was stiff. Like she was performing a scene she didn't believe in. She laughed at something he said, but it didn't reach her eyes. She looked older somehow. Not physically. Just different. Like the mask didn't fit anymore. Like she didn't know how to be the version of herself that used to light up rooms. And I realized something right then. She didn't miss me. She missed the mirror I used to hold up for her. The one that made her feel adored. The one that reminded her who she wanted to be. When I left, I took that mirror with me. And now, she was standing there, reaching for a reflection that wouldn't come back. I kept hearing things. People gossip. They always do. One friend said she tried to host a small get-together, a game night or something. Only a couple people showed up and they left early. Another said she'd been reaching out to old acquaintances she hadn't spoken to in years. Not to apologize, just to be seen. Apparently, someone brought up the video once, not to her, but in a side conversation. And someone else said, I don't know. She's always kind of been like that. That stuck with me. Because that's what happens, right? The truth doesn't always blow up. Sometimes it leaks. Quietly. Slowly. Until one day, the version of you that you worked so hard to project doesn't line up with what people actually see. And Sloane? She'd run out of people willing to pretend. I still never blocked her. I didn't need to. The silence did all the work. She sent one last message about 3 months in. No emojis. No small talk. You really aren't going to say anything, are you? I stared at it for a while. Thought maybe I'd respond. Not to start something, just to give her an answer. But then I remembered what she said to me the night of the party. When I noticed her disappear. When I asked a simple question and she smiled too tightly and whispered, "Don't ruin the vibe." She didn't want the truth back then. She only wanted control. So I gave her the one thing she couldn't spin. The one ending she couldn't narrate her way out of. Silence. No performance. No redemption arc. Just a quiet stage. An empty room. A curtain that never reopened. And for someone like Sloane, that was worse than anything I could have said. Weeks later, we crossed paths again. Not in some personal setting, but at a business event. I was there for work, building something real with people who saw me for what I brought to the table. She saw me across the room, and for the first time, she wasn't part of my story. She was just someone passing through the frame. Her eyes caught mine. A flicker of surprise, then confusion. I smiled politely and kept talking with the colleagues beside me. No drama, no moment, just life continuing. She didn't belong in that world anymore. And when she tried to approach later, the message was clear in how I greeted her. Formal, brief, and indifferent. There was no door left open. She'd already walked out of it. She waited for some dramatic ending. A fight, an apology, even a final, cruel remark. But it never came. Just silence. I didn't ghost her. I didn't disappear. I simply stopped being available to her, to the past, to the performance. There was no last scene because the show was already over. She had spent so long chasing an audience, forgetting the difference between attention and love. And in the end, what broke her wasn't my anger. It was the realization that I had moved on long before she noticed I was gone.